How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another build video for the 2004 CRF250 build. I hope you guys enjoyed your holidays. I enjoyed mine, but now it's time to get back at this engine and start getting this top end put back together. So I got the cylinder and the cylinder head on the bench here. I went ahead and vapor blasted this cylinder here. It turned out really awesome, just like the rest of the engine here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start taking this cylinder head apart, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do that. All right, guys, to get this exhaust bridge out here is where I'm going to start. You just need a 6mm hex, and you take this plug out, and then there's a shaft in here, and you just slide that out, and that should come right out. So I'll just take the plug out. So that comes out easy enough. There's no ring in here. Put that off to the side, and then this shaft, you can put, I think you can put like a 10mm thread in there, like metric thread, to pull it out. So I'll just put one in there quick and try that out. So you can put, this is too small, but you can kind of jam it in there and pull the shaft out like this. So there's the shaft that holds the cam bridge in for the exhaust. So it'll come out just like that. You can just set that over here to the side, a little O-ring here, and that's it for that. So that's all you need to do to get that out. So the next thing I'm going to do is start taking these valves out. So I've already taken the shims out for the intake side. So now I'm going to take these shims out for the exhaust side, and I'm not going to bother marking which comes out of where, because I'm gonna remeasure everything and redo it when I install, because I'm actually going to change the intake valves. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get these out, and then I'll show you guys how I'm gonna get these valves out. So this is my little homemade valve puller here, guys. So I kind of just took a 6-inch clamp and I cut an 11mm deep socket, and I cut the grooves out so that this piece here can go on the top of this, and this piece here can go on the bottom of the valve. So it's gonna go right there, and so this piece here is gonna push here, and this piece here is gonna push down there, and you compress the spring, and then you can pull the little collets out, the little keepers in there, and then you can pull that intake valve out. So I'll do one in real time, and then I'll probably just time lapse the rest, because they're all the exact same. So to set this tool up, you just open the jaws up, and then you kind of just nice and easy go over the valves. So I actually made this tool so if I need to, I can pull this off and turn it. So I can configure the tool how I need to, depending on what kind of shape the head is for the particular bike. So I'll try and get it on camera if I can here. This is always a bit of a challenge trying to get this part filmed. So I'll get it set up here, and then I'll show you guys how I'm going to do this. Take these dowels out. Okay, so see if I can get this on camera here. It's pretty tough to do. I usually actually just put this in the vise and do this, but because I'm filming it, can't always get the best camera angle in the vise. You just twist it, and then it's starting to push it in there. See if I can zoom in and see. So you can see how it's pushing it in there, pushing down in the spring. So now I'll have access to those little keepers. So now I'll see if I can get them out with my little magnet here. See, I got one there. Now I'll see if I can turn the tool a little bit and get that second one now. Come on. So there's a second one now. So now I'll back the tool off, and then it should come right out for me. There it is. Get this backed right out. Now when you do this, I'm just doing this like this now because I'm trying to film it. So, but it is easiest, I find, to either take the tool or take the head and put it in a vise. But since I'm filming it, it's kind of hard to do that when the vise is in like a fixed position or whatever. But we'll zoom out a little bit here. So the next thing you'll do is take this spring out, and that's going to go on top. So you want to pay attention when you're taking these out. So this came out just like this. So you can see all these coils right on top of one another. There's like 3. And then on the top, it's like they're spaced out a little more. So you want to pay attention to how these come out. So as you can see, it was the 3 coils down. So that's how I'll put the other springs back in. And then once you have all that out, you can just go ahead and take your push on the back of your valve, and that'll come out, and then you just take it straight out. It's actually pretty tight. Now, I'm pretty sure that the reason why these drop out on these 04s is because these get mushroomed out and they get beat up, and then the collets release if it goes into spring float or something like that, and then they'll drop out. But in this case, it's kind of, I think it's been mushroomed, so it's actually pretty tough to get out of here. So I might have to just kind of finagle it out if I can. But you don't want to do it too hard, because you want the valve guide to be able to you don't want to damage the valve guide here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind this down a little bit and see if it'll release it. So I'm going to take this little valve seal out first too and see what's going on in there. The wrench rabbit kit I bought comes with new seals. So if I beat it up a little bit getting it out of there, that's okay. Yeah, so I think that's exactly what's happening there. This valve has been beat up. So I've got to grind this down a little bit, and I should be able to slide the valve out, because if you can see there, it's only going about that far, so I don't want to force it out. So I'm gonna have to grind it down a little bit, and I'll try and file it or do something like that, but I'm gonna try and make this little skinnier and see if I can get it out of there. Another thing I'll mention is there's these little pieces here, and they sit underneath the spring like this on the bottom, so they go down on the bottom there, right in there, and they sit on the bottom of the spring like that. It's like a spring seat. So what I'm doing here is just slowly filing around the back of the valve here to see if it'll come through. But it seems to be mushroomed out pretty good, so I'll have to do quite a bit of grinding, I think. Quite a bit of filing. All right, so I ground down the back of this valve, so now it seems to be coming out. So there it is. So this piece right here on the back of the stem, that was just had the crap beat out of it, so it was probably mushroomed out. So I'm gonna go ahead and take apart the rest of these valves, and then I'll show you what it looks like after all the valves are out. So I'm getting one exhaust spring out here, guys, and it's the left-hand side, and I'm pulling it out just like it's was sitting in there, and it looks like on these exhaust side, these double stack spring right here, right there, that goes on the bottom, and you see how this is not compressed together, the two springs that'll go on top. So I'll set that aside now, and hopefully this valve will come out nice and easy. I had to grind both of these intake valves out, so hopefully these exhaust valves will come out easy for me. And it did, so that's nice. So that's that'll be the left-hand exhaust right there, and then I'll go ahead and remove that right-hand side. All right, guys, I've got all the valves out here now. So you know, that's the good thing, but the bad thing about it is, like, that's the easiest part. Putting them back in, I find, is usually a lot harder. So what I'm going to do is, to get this ready for vapor blasting, is I'm going to take you know, just the exhaust nuts off. I'm going to take this little 90 out for the coolant, and I'm going to take the boot for the intake off, and then I should be able to get this cleaned up and ready for dry blasting. All right, well, I got this head pretty much completely disassembled here now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to scrub this out a little bit with some fire clean. That's what I use to clean my guns. It takes carbon out pretty good. And then when I'm done scrubbing that out, I'm going to throw this in the ultrasonic cleaner and let that go sitting there for, I don't know, a little while and soak till it heats up. And then put it on for about a half an hour. I'm noticing these valve seats look pretty good, so I'm not too worried about those. So I'm not going to bother recutting those or anything like that. So I'll definitely reuse the exhaust valves, and I have new intake valves because, as you guys could see, I had to grind these down. So I don't know why, but it's always the intake valves on these 04s, like anywhere from like 2001 to 2005. These intake valves really suck on these, so it's a good idea to replace those if you haven't. If you have like a stock anywhere from 01 to 05, you should probably just take these out and put a good set of like good steel ones, aftermarket ones in there. So that I would definitely replace that, because that's what used to happen to these bikes, and that's why you don't see them around so much anymore, because the intake valve drops into the cylinder and then carnage ensues, and then you don't have a engine anymore. So it's a good idea to take these apart and just change out those intake valves. All right, guys, so after I got the head all taken apart here, I went ahead and I vapor blasted it, and as usual, it turned out absolutely amazing. That vapor blasting turns out really nice. So now I'm going to go ahead and start putting this back together. I'm just going to go in the reverse order of what I took it apart. So I'm going to start with the exhaust valves here and start putting those back in. All right, guys, so now I'm going to go ahead and start putting this right-hand exhaust valve in. And so you want to start with this little piece here. This lays flat on the bottom, down in here. So you want to use a little bit of assembly lube or oil and just put that on the bottom there, just so it'll stick on there. And then you can use a magnet or something, or you can drop it right in by hand, it doesn't matter. Then after that, you're going to want to use the put the valve seal in. These are all the same size on these ones, so some valve seal sets you'll have a different size for exhaust, a different size for a intake, but this one here is the same size, so it's not going to matter. So I'll put a little bit of assembly lube on the valve guide there, and I just use a screwdriver like this and just stick the screwdriver in the valve guide like that and just push it right in, and it just pops right in just like that. So next comes the valve. Just go ahead and pop that up through. Gotta wait a little bit to get it through the seal. Not a big deal. And when you put this spring in, you want to make sure that this spring is in so that these two springs close together on the bottom. So you see how this one has like a gap here, and then these two are really close together. You want that side down. And then you put the top collet in. And now you're ready to put your spring compressor tool back on and try and get these little keepers back in. But you want to use something that's magnetized for these, but just like a low magnetic power, like a screwdriver or something like that. Like you see how it sticks to the screwdriver. You want to use something like that because you don't want it too powerful, because then it you won't be able to drop it off and install it. So I'm gonna see if I can compress this and install these right here, but I might have to put it in the vise after. Just get my tool set up here. Okay, so you just compress it until you've got the stem exposed. It might be a little hard to see. So it might be a little bit hard to see there, but you're gonna get that there, and you got to put that down into here. So it's quite challenging. It's tough to show on the video. So I might have to move it, and then I'll show you guys after how it's supposed to look. But these have to go down into the valve stem there. All right, guys, so I got that one in there. It's a bit of a fight, but that's what it's supposed to look like anyways. So that center stem will be sticking out, and you got to get these two like half moon shaped pieces around it, and then you release the tool, and then it should grab onto the back of the valve there and keep everything in place. All right, well, I got the exhaust valves in here now. Like I say, it's a bit of a painstaking process to get those little keepers in there, but it is possible. You just gotta kind of be patient with them. I'm gonna move on to the intake valves now. But as I said, I'm not putting these old ones back in because they're all kind of beat up on the ends. They're all mushroomed out. So I went ahead and I bought this new valve and spring kit. It's from ProX. It's for the 04 to 17 CRF250 X and R. So I'll open this up and then we'll see what's in here. All right, so we got the intake kit here. So we got our springs, and then we got our intake valves here. So with these springs, you always want to put them in with the painted side up because that triple stack there, that goes down. And it's the exact same process as the exhaust valves. So you're gonna put this little piece down first, and then put the seal in, and then your spring, and then this little top collet on top of the spring, and then you gotta compress it again and try and get those keepers in, just like the exhaust valve. Alright guys, so I got the valves all installed there now, and they're all seated in nice. So now you can go ahead and start putting everything else back together. So I'm going to start with the exhaust bridge now. So you just go ahead and put the exhaust bridge right in there. Just like that. Then you're going to want to lube up the shaft here. I don't think it matters which way it goes in. Just kind of wiggle it in there. Push that right in, and then you just, these little holes here on the shaft, you just make sure you line up with those. Now your exhaust bridge is back in, so now you can put the dowels back in here. Got the dowels in. So now there's other dowels that go on the bottom, but we'll worry about those after. This little O-ring can go on right now. But other than that, you can reinstall your cover. And the rest of this the rest of the head is ready to go back on the bike, so or on the back onto the engine there. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next thing, which is putting the piston onto the crank. The only two things left to go on this is this intake boot. This is easy because it just says, let's see if you can see it there. It says carb up, KRN, so this is going to face up, facing towards where the carb would go, so just like that. And then you just put your clamp on, and this here just goes back onto there with an O-ring. So make sure the O-ring is put on, and then you can put that back in there. Other than that, that's ready to go back on, because all the other intake stuff is going to go on later on when I do the valve lash. So one more thing I'll quickly mention is this O-ring is actually supplied in the Wrench Rabbit kit. So it comes in the little bag with all the gaskets and things for the head and the cylinder and all that. So you just go ahead and just put that back in like that. Line up your bolt. You know what? Let's see what else we got. Got all these brand new bolts laying around from other kits, so I'm going to use one of those. Look at that, perfect match. There you go. Now it's ready to go back on top of the cylinder. All right, so I've got the bottom end back out here now. So that's super exciting because that means the piston is going to go on next. And then after that, we can start putting the cylinder on and then the head and start getting this thing buttoned up. But first of all, we got to kind of look in the box here and see what we got. So we got the decals there. And we got the piston. And we've got the ring set. So first thing I'm going to do is just make sure, I'm going to measure the bore and make sure we got good clearance for that. And then I imagine we got to set the ring end gap on these. All right guys, so I'm just doing a little bit of measuring here, and I measured the diameter of the top of the piston here, and it says it's 77.96, but it is definitely not that. It's 77, I think it was like 77.40 something. It's hard to do with the camera in my hand, but so it's 77.40 something, and the cylinder is about 77, 78. So the cylinder is definitely bigger than the piston, so that's good. That should go right in and fit no problem. So now I'm going to figure out what the ring end gap is for these piston rings. All right guys, so I went ahead and measured this. Everything's in spec here. I'll put a link to the video I used to figure that out. It's harder for me to explain because I'm learning myself usually. So everything looks good on this, so I can put this onto the top of the crank rod now. When you're installing these the oil ring, sometimes you can get into trouble. So what I do is I'll install this the waffle ring first, and then I'll install the side rail from the bottom, and then do that, and then go from the top and install the next side rail. And I kind of make it so that they're installed in thirds. So I'll have the one gap here, and then the side rail gap I'll have up here, and then this other side rail gap I'll have up there. Kind of, I'll show you. So one gap was like here, and then one gap was here on the next ring, and then on the top ring it was there. So you kind of want to stagger your gaps on the ring. So when you install these pistons, that arrow has got to go to the front of the engine where the exhaust is, because you can see where these are cut out here, they're smaller. So that's the exhaust side. So you want to put this on just like that, and you want to keep something in here to catch the retainer clips, because sometimes they can kind of pop out on you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just install the one retainer clip on this side, and then I'm going to pop the wrist pin through the piston and the connecting rod, and then I'll put the other retainer clip in. All right guys, so I got the piston on there now. So I was able to take the napkins out there now, or the paper towel, shop towel. When you get this on, you always want to triple check that you have these clips in properly. make sure they're seated in correctly. And when I put these in, I put the open end down like that, because if you put them this way, the up and down of the engine could potentially compress them and they could come out. They're more likely to come out, so I put them that way. So don't forget your gasket here, and then now you're ready to put the cylinder on. So you just take a little bit of assembly lube, just put it in there, and you just kind of spread it around in the cylinder here. Give my hands a wipe. Just vapor blasted that, so try and keep as much oil off as possible. And now you want to turn it around like that, and you want your chain up through. It's a bit of a thing to try and get this chain through. Sometimes you can even, if you want, you can use some mechanics wire or something like that. Make sure you've installed your gasket. And you bring it down over top of your piston. You got to kind of squeeze the rings a little bit here. Actually, I can deal with that after. It's not a big deal. But you want to squeeze all your rings together. And then there's a little bevel on the bottom of this cylinder, so that helps you quite often. So feed your chain up through, and you should be able to just work everything down. My oil ring there is getting hung up, so sometimes you'll run into this. You'll get things hanging up on you. You just got to turn everything around and just see what's hanging up. In this case, it's the top ring for the oil ring there. They can be troublesome sometimes. Again, you just got to take your time. Start getting rammy with them and you'll wreck your rings. You just wiggle the cylinder down into place. More times than not, you'll get hung up on the dowels a little bit. But you just give it a little help with the dead blow. Dowels are like the necessary evil of a dirt bike. Make your life miserable, but they gotta be there. All right, I'll call that good. So now, before I do anything else, I'll put this other guide in here. So that needs to go in. Because if you put that in, if you try and put that in after you install the head, it's not going to work very well. I actually think it goes that way. Yeah. All right, so now you move on to installing the head. So this gasket can only go on one way. So you got to put it down like this. It looks like you got to get it around the chain guide here. Maybe this guide can go in after. But you always want to keep this one in your mind, because sometimes engines go back together without them. We'll get that in, turn it sideways, should slip right in there. There we go. So like I was saying, this head gasket can only go on one way. Now you're ready to put the head on. Make sure the dowels are in there. And then same thing, you gotta feed the chain up through, which can be a bit of a pain. That's why it's good to have a magnet handy. Line all the holes up. And again, you gotta fight with the dowels as usual. Just let the chain hang there. And there you go. Now you have everything put on there. So now you definitely try and keep the chain from falling down. But now you're ready to put the nuts back on and torque this head down. One thing I'll mention before I torque these down is I always put these guide bolts in. I don't torque them down until all the head nuts are torqued, but you don't want to forget about those. Alright guys, I went and had a look at the torque spec for these the head nuts here, and they're 29 foot-pounds. I'll link down below where I'm getting the information from the online service manual. So I'm going to go ahead and torque these down to 29 foot-pounds. Alright guys, with all that, I'm going to end the video here because the next step is to start to do the shimming and time the engine and all that. I think I'm going to do that in its own video, so I have a few things to do anyways. I've got some powder coating to do, a little bit of vapor blasting, a few little small things on the engine to do. And in the next video, like I was saying, I'll shim it, time it, and then this engine will be good to go back on the frame after that. So if you want to see that and you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And as always, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.